All right, here's a story, a Sukkot story. This story happened to me. I don't even remember how long it was ago, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like I say, I've told the story many times before, but I'm telling it to you again. I went to the Rebbe. This year, I didn't go to the Rebbe, whatever reasons it is, but every year, usually I go, especially on Sukkot. And when I go on Sukkot, so every day I go, I take a lulav and an etrog, and I go into the streets of Manhattan. I take a subway, and I get off, usually some arbitrary place, and I stand on a corner and I ask people if they're Jewish and if they want to do lulav and etrog. Lulav and etrog. That's what I do. And I go alone. I don't want to go alone, but it usually ends up that everybody goes out in pairs and they all go and I get how do you say, I don't want to wait. I don't want to use the word nervous, but I guess I get nervous to waiting. I don't like to wait around. So I wait for like 10, 5, 15 minutes to wait for somebody and nobody comes, so I leave. Anyway, one year, so I got off at a stop and I walked and I saw that there was a big Chabad Succa, a big Chabad Succa. So I went around, all the Chabad fellows were standing in the front of the Sukkah, inviting people in and to make a blessing on Lulav and Etrog and maybe to make a blessing on the Sukkah. They had, like cakes there. You can make a blessing sitting in the Sukkah. So I decided I went around to the back of the Sukkah where there was no opening. But it ended up that the back of the Sukkah was facing these exit from the subway exit, a big exit. It was big, wide stairs, like maybe three sets of stairs. People were just pouring out. So they were pouring out. So no, I figured I'll stand over the lulav and etrog. People come pouring out. I'll ask them if they're Jewish. So they came out and said, "Are you Jewish, sir? Are you Jewish, sir?" Anyway, so I have a lot of stories about this, but this is one of the stories. So they came out a bunch of. So people did. People took lulav and etrog, and some people. So they came out a bunch of youth. I imagine they were like in their their teens, maybe their mid-teens, maybe even a little bit older. Maybe they were in their early 20s, could be. Anyway, they were. I guess I don't know if this fad is still going around, but there was a big fad going around called punk rock, and punkists and punkers, and they would like purposely dye their hair bizarre colors and put all sorts of tattoos and piercings, all over themselves and wear bizarre clothes, especially leather with studs in it and things like that. So they're in Lulav. But I look at these kids, and it seems pretty obvious to me that they're not Jewish, but you can never tell. Anyway, they came over to me. It was maybe like 10 of them. And they said, "What do you got there?" Because they're bored. They're like really bored. That's one thing they have in common. They're really bored. That's why they do all these piercings and stuff, because they're just bored. They got, every new minute is like a sort of a torture for them, an emptiness. Anyway, so they came over to me and they said, "What is that?" And so I said, "I'm holding this lulav and etrog." Now what is lulav and etrog? We talk about that. Lulav is a central branch of a palm tree. Sometimes it's pretty high, pretty impressive. And you take also an etrog, which is a yellow fruit which grows, especially. Sometimes they're pretty expensive, but it's impressive looking. Looks like a lemon, sort of an elongated lemon. And two other types of vegetation, smaller, and you put it in the gun. So they came over to me and they asked me, "What is that?" So I said, "Oh, I'm a Jew. I'm a religious Jew. Are any of you Jews?" They looked at me and said, "No, we're not Jewish." So I said, "Oh, I'm a Jew. And we Jews, we have holidays. And this is a Jewish holiday." Said, "Oh, yeah. What holiday is it?" So I said, "It's the holiday called Sukkot. Sukkot. And we take these four types of vegetation and we shake it." So they said, "Ooh, what is it? I can't remember. Organic. Oh, organic. It's an organic holiday. This is really good." And they said, "Yeah, organic. Yes, organic." So I said, "Yeah, this is the." So I said, "But the main thing is," and I was just talking to them, I don't. So I said, "The main thing is the sukkah. See this booth in back of me, and it has leaves on the top of it. And we Jews have been sitting in this for 3,300 years. Wow, 3,300 years. That's a long time." I said, "Yeah, not the same Jews, and they laughed. So I said, but you know why we sit in this booth is because God took us out of Egypt 3,300 years ago, and he surrounded us with these clouds to protect us. And so we sit in the sukkah to remind us that God protects us. All of a sudden, I get this idea in my mind. And I figure, I'll make something up with it. So it wasn't really made up, but I figure, so I said to them, this it comes to a sign. This is a sign to tell us that anytime anybody wants to do something good, like the Jews left Egypt, it was not good than Egypt. There's a different Egypt than today. They left slavery. Anytime a person wants to do good, is God will protect him. God will protect him. So I saw at this point we'd already been talking for like maybe a minute and a half, and they had like less patience than I did. So they were all nervous, and at least I was doing the talking. So I saw they were all sort of fidgeting around, ready to go. And all of a sudden I said these words. I said that anybody who wants to do something good, God will watch him, protect them. I said, or in other words, no one is ever alone. I said those words. No one is ever alone. 4 words. As soon as I said that, I noticed something that like they sort of stopped moving a little bit. I noticed that some sort of change came over them. So I looked at them and they were all like looking up like this. They were all looking like this. And the older one of them, he said, and these guys had like, how do they call it? A mohawk haircuts with like blue in the middle, red, and all sorts of, they looked really weird. And then I said, no one is ever alone. And they all looked like this. And the older one said, that's a good message. That's a good message. And I said, I don't shake hands with girls. I'm a religious Jew. I don't shake hands with girls. I'll shake hands with them. And everybody shook my hand. They said, that's a good message. Thank you. And they left. Suddenly I realized that people feel alone. They feel separate. And they feel that nobody really, cares about them. And so they also don't care about anybody else. They're really it's just like this living in the desert. Everything is just separate. Once in a while there's a scorpion, a snake, or, what is it? This rush, whatever. What is it? What is it called? They call it sagebrush or something. It just floats by and something like that. Just this, and suddenly I told them, no, that you're never alone. God is always with you. And they really liked this message. From then, I realized that it's really true. It's really true. I told it to them, and I have to use it for myself as well, that's the message of Sukkot, and that's the message of Judaism, that no one in the world is ever alone. God is creating everyone, specially, individually, not just as a big group or a herd, and enlivening everybody, and everybody in every moment of life is important to God. And it's also eternal. When you do something good, that deed is a godly deed, and it's eternal. If you do something good, you show a sign of honesty, of love, of trust, of faith, helping others. So those are eternal things, and they never go away. The message of Sukkot: no one is ever alone. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Good to see you, Menachem.